Welcome to Horizons of Thought. Today, I'm going to talk to you about processes, which are a series of actions or steps that need to be taken in order to achieve a particular end. This is going to be the beginning of a short mini-series within this channel on the skills of critical thinking. You will never, ever be able to come up with any kind of a policy for the world or any kind of a solution to a problem if you do not either think about all of the steps you need to go from where you are now to where you want to be, or you make sure you gather a team of people around you who can actually do a lot of that kind of work for you. Because you can't just imagine a future and hope that it will be there. You've actually got to take the steps necessary in order to enact that new future. Now, let me explain why I'm talking about this right now. Whenever I go on social media these days, I'm seeing lots and lots of commentary about the current pandemic that's sweeping over the world. And a lot of those commentaries seem to be written in a style where, okay, we see this one thing that's being done, in this case, the lockdown, and we want to imagine how we can keep doing that because that seems to be a medically sound thing to do, while still dealing with the fact that what's happening right now is the longer lockdowns take place, the more we're creating economic ruination and hunger in the world. And I've seen people say things like, well, if you have to lock down societies in order to deal with medical issues, one of the things you might want to do is go and just change the economy. And I'm left thinking to myself, okay, let me see what it is that you want to do to change the economy. You perceive all of the economic bad that's happening in the world as artificial, as made up, but you haven't described to me how it's made up, and you haven't described to me how you're going to fix it. I see stuff like this all the time, all over the place in social media. It doesn't work like this. You want to change anything as big as an economy, you've got to actually go through a process of changing it, and you've got to think about the steps. Let me give an example from the real world of just one aspect of an economy that was changed. In the Netherlands, when they decided that they wanted to have more cyclists on the road, they couldn't just magically make people get rid of their cars and have more bicycles on the road. It actually took a long time and a whole lot of slow little changes to the way the roads were built, to the way people drove. For instance, for drivers, you teach them, don't just open your door by holding onto the handle on the side where the door is, and then open the door, which could then cause a cyclist to crash into the door. Get people to use their opposite hand. When they use their opposite hand, they're looking behind them and they can see a cyclist that's coming. They won't open the door in the face of the cyclist. This step reduces something known as dooring in cycling, which makes people who are cycling less afraid to cycle because they don't think people are going to randomly open the door and flick their bodies into traffic or flick them into sidewalks or poles or break their bones. It reduces the fear. This is one thing. And if you take a look at what happened in the Netherlands over decades of time, they enacted small incremental steps that repaired roads, changed the way bike lanes were, so bike lanes were protected from traffic, or even took them completely out of traffic zones so the cars were not occupying the same spaces as bicycles. They set up places to park bicycles. They did a bunch of things. And even now to this day, there are still really frustrating issues that exist in the Netherlands now that lots of people use bicycles. If you have ever seen one of the places where bicycles are typically parked, it's full of a whole bunch of bicycles. If you've ever seen the amount of bicycle theft that exists in the Netherlands, people have kind of given up on that one, and they just buy really cheap, generic-looking bikes that all look like each other, because this helps deal with the fact that we don't really know how to solve the bicycle theft problem, so we make it so we don't need to care as much. All of these little steps were enacted in order to change the society so people went from driving cars less to riding bicycles more for their daily commutes. It's not easy. It takes a lot of thought about the processes. And in this case, it happened very slowly over a long time where people could think of some of the issues and do some changes and then think of some of the other issues and do some changes. So that over decades, you had changes in behavior. So when I'm seeing people on Facebook imagine that we can change entire global economy across multiple countries full of different people who don't agree with each other on a lot of different things because their nations are different and their structures are different, and they're saying, oh, we can just change the economy. I'm left thinking to myself, what? You can't just change an economy. If it took decades for the Netherlands to figure out how to get people out of their cars and onto bicycles more and more over time, what makes you think you can just change the entire world economy that quickly? You got to actually not just wish for these magical changes, but put in the hard work to think about what all the steps are to go from where we are now to where we would be in the future. And you need to be prepared for the possibility that as you think about these issues and you try to come up with plans that would actually change economies, you might actually be wrong about some of the things that are going on. Even if it seems to be that economies are set up to benefit the rich in favor of many, many poor people, you might not be able to solve all the problems you want to solve by alleviating some of that. You may actually need a certain amount of work, either from people or from machines, in order to make sure that enough food really is grown. You may actually need a system to deal with the fact that some years you need to grow more food than others in order to save food in order to deal with the next year. And how are you going to deal with those kinds of issues? You may need to deal with the issues of people thinking very differently about how they want to structure their economies and live in their houses and move about on their daily commutes throughout the world. And you have to realize and be respectful of all the different ways that people are dealing with this if you're going to try to tinker with world economies. And the truth of the matter is, if you don't put that kind of work in to deal with all of these issues, all the people of the world who come from different cultures and different places and different environments are not going to listen to you. They're not going to change any of their behaviors for you. And even if you gain enough power to force that, you're not going to make the utopia you're dreaming of. Instead, you're going to make a dystopian hell because you're not able to listen to what's going on around you and you're not able to deal with all the steps you need to get from here to there. If you try to imagine that you can, some form of justice that you want to see in the future and snap your fingers and it will happen, that's not what you're going to get. You're actually going to get a much more unjust world. Nothing worth doing can possibly be done if you don't actually put in the labor to think about how it is you get from here to there. Nothing. So this is probably one of the more ranty videos I've done, but I was really driven nuts by this topic. And it is incredibly important that you think about processes for anything, even before you get into the main steps of critical thought that we're going to be talking about later. You need to be underpinned with this notion that anytime you want to change something, you need to know how you get from where we are now to where we're going. And if you don't know that, you need to get the advice needed to do this. And you need to get the buy-in and the will of people in order to make those steps happen. So with that, I hope you enjoyed my little rant on Horizons of Thought. If you did, hit like. If you did not enjoy my little rant on this topic, hit dislike and tell me what it is you thought I missed, what it is you think actually should be done on this particular issue, how I can improve the way I think about this topic. And I will actually write and do another video on this topic if enough people comment on this and give me really good advice on how I can talk about processes as a episode 2 on this particular topic. Otherwise, I'm going to move on through the various notions of critical thought, the next one probably being on fallacies versus arguments that might be weak. So again, if you liked it, hit like. If you did not like this episode, hit dislike. If you want to support this channel, please go to donor box below, click the link to it, and you can subscribe to this channel. You can give a one-off benefit for the channel, or you can give monthly. If you have anything that's monthly for your subscription, the amount that you contribute to subscribe dictates the kinds of benefits that I will provide on this channel. I will make sure, for instance, if you contribute a fair amount, that I make videos every once in a while that talk about some of the topics you're really interested in. I've already done that for the 2 anonymous donors. And it's quite a lot of fun to actually work with other people to try to make new videos. So with that, thank you for listening to Horizons of Thought, and I hope to see you in a few days.